Man, first photo. All right, good evening, everybody. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is a really important endeavor that we're taking on, and we really appreciate your time and look forward to your input. And I'd like to introduce a few people before we get started. We do have Councilor Randy Morgan, and we have Councilor Lisa Smith, and we have one of our board members. I didn't see where Bob Lutridge, all the way up in the back here. So this is a process that we started late last year, early this year. We hired a consulting firm, Dahl Environmental, with Bjorn Dahl and Lyle Battery. They're going to be running this whole meeting tonight. And then I'd like to also introduce our Deputy Chief, Locke. Say a couple things before we turn it over to Dahl.
Like Steve said, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank our elected officials on behalf of Chief Piper and myself, and our attorney staff for doing a great job setting this up. Also like to welcome our certain people. They always are really do a great ally for us in our training and endeavors. Also, Bjorn and Bob behind me, they're the experts. They got over 50 years of experience doing this kind of stuff. They work all over the country in the Forest Service. They testified in front of Congress and all kinds of things that are really neat to get talking and find out all the experience they have. When we started out this process, we had some really good subject matter experts that work for the department in this area. Chief Hyde had to leave on the call. Chris Warren works for Stephen. And we set out to do the CWPP. Dahl Environmental Services was way above everybody else. It was an easy choice to make. And again, this is our first time we've ever done a CWPP. We were very happy to have them work along with us. And I won't keep it much longer because they're the experts. And like I said, I'm very proud to be part of this CWPP and to work with these two guys. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. That's a great introduction. Tennessee and now Colorado. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to be here. Lyle and I both work together in partnering on these projects. We've had a lot of experience with the government forces, United States forces side. And then after that, here we are. Trying to help communities walk their way through wildfire. Our experience in the past has covered all the bases, land management, and wildfire management throughout the United States. So, very fortunate. Thank you for coming. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and introduce the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And this is a joint plan between Arvada and Fairmont. So it's a marriage. How about that? Decided individual agreements plan is a great opportunity to join forces. Gosh, put the whole thing together, it is over 39,000 acres of land inside the two fire districts. So it's a significant project. Let's do this technical. Very cool. Next. So this evening, I do want to say that, there we go. This evening, I do want to say this should be fun. And it's a production piece because after we're done, we're going to hang your box, and that's going to help develop the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. But we also have a steering committee. We have the chief, and you can see on the screen above me who comprises that. They kind of provide the overall coverage. That steering committee is a blend between Arvada and Fairmont. And then there's a kind of an interdisciplinary core team. These are the people that are going to be reviewing the documents, critiquing our work, suggesting new ways to to illustrate, process the information that we're going to be developing. So it's a big job. Now, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Next. Oh, good. It's really the hardcore of this thing. Now, Fairmont has had a plan, and they have provided that back in 2007. And we're building that. But the Community Wildfire Protection Plan really provides wildfire strategies that can be implemented by you, the community. And these are the strategies that are going to be developed inside the plan. The wildfire strategies make the community better prepared to find their way through wildfire situations and do habitat and various kinds of vegetative management. We want to identify and address the local fire hazards. That's part of this plan. And trying to find those fire hazards. And addressing local hazards and risks of wildfire. The end product is a roadmap, and it's an action plan for the communities to follow and build. It also ties in with providing enough opportunities to receive grants to complete work and build on implementation.
Thanks, Bjorn.
Technology.
Just a little bit of background on community wildfire protection plans. The genesis began back probably in 2000 after the big fire season across the country. And Congressmen came together and put together what we call the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. And through that Healthy Forest Restoration Act, one of the elements was this idea of putting together community wildfire protection plans so that we could, and just as we were talking about, develop strategies to reduce the risk of wildfire in communities. And then everybody talks about, well, that's somewhere else. Well, that somewhere else is right here. And we just experienced Marshall Fire. That's probably the highlight, one that especially over his mind. I've talked to a lot of folks about the Marshall Fire and how folks in Superior, when they bought their homes 25 years ago, never thought they would ever be impacted by a wildfire. And that happened in December, so it's going on 365. So the whole background sets the foundation for this community wildfire protection plan.
A lot of little humble on this. Actually, we participated nationally in the National Fire Plan for joint agencies, Forest Service, Energy Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and BLM, right? I think I got that right. So he really started this whole process that developed into the Healthy Forest Restoration laws.
Thanks. Some of the screen right now talks about the purpose, and really the purpose is quite simple: is to reduce the risk of fire in communities. And the whole idea of reducing the risk of fire is to save lives and protect property, and that really becomes the framework, the foundation that the plan that we can work with the Fire Protection District here together. It's the latest to that kind of a plan. It becomes an operational plan that we can in fact make a difference. And I lived here in Arvada now for 25 years, and watched the growth and development taking place. Some of the things I want to share with you kind of help to set the stage so that as we engage in the conversation, which is one of the key elements of the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, Healthy Forest Act, is built on collaboration. Collaboration's conversation that takes place among the community stakeholders, leaders, and resource folks to help what can we do to really make a difference? We are so confident that we can make a difference. We've seen it happen before, so.
Yeah, behind you is the process for the CWPP, and that's part of the mission tonight, is to have a meaningful discussion among the community members about this, and the stakeholders, meaning preparing regarding the process of developing priorities for protection and looking at hazardous fuels advantage of the district. Ideally, issues and concerns will be developed and a community risk assessment will follow. Goals. All right, these are probably the largest frame and framework for goals you can have. I mean, if you got a CWPP, the foremost importance of everything is to protect lives, property, and resources. I mean, that's really the foundation. That's the highest goal you can have. Create a fire-adapted community. You want to be able to have a community that's resilient in fire and has a way to be able to adapt to the natural ecosystems and fire systems that evolve. Restore and maintain fire. I've said resilient landscapes. That means the habitat and the environment that you're in. Provide effective and efficient wildlife response. That's where we are now, the fire department. How fast can you get out there? You put all fires out by 10 a.m. the next day? Or when do you jump on?
Again, we talked about the importance of collaboration, and what we tried to do is just highlight a few of the folks that we've identified already that are going to be important players. And when you start looking at this whole fire protection district of Fairmont and Arvada, the infrastructure that exists in this whole community is extremely significant. So when you start putting together the list of folks that we want to engage as active collaborators, it really helps us put together a solid foundation for a plan that is meaningful. You and I work with a lot of communities on putting together wildfire protection plans, and the whole idea is to have an operational plan. We don't want to be part of a process that ends up with a document that just sits in somebody's shelf. It's almost a daily tool for folks to be looking at what do we need to be doing today. So the idea of collaboration among stakeholders, agencies, business communities is so fundamental to making this work. So we want to make sure that we highlight this with you, that this becomes part of the whole process of developing that plan. This begins to show you a little bit of the nature of the characteristic of the Fire Protection District. And this shows what they call the wildland urban interface. You're going to hear a lot of discussion about WUI. This is where people live, in that kind of zone between homes and the wildland. And you can see the cross-section of the district where that housing density is exploding. And just in the time that I've been here, you're watching what's going on in Candelas, Light Rock, that growth and development. The density is there. But one of the things that the owner will show you in just a minute is the fuel tank on the western side of the district is that grass type of fuel system. And that fuel model is one of the things that will carry fire, just like we saw the marshes. The density of housing in the district is amazing, and that becomes an important fundamental part of the whole planning processes. Where are people, where are the resources, where's the infrastructure?
Yeah, the Colorado Fire Risk Assessment is built around the Colorado CORAP. It's a state atlas that we use. to identify where the risks are, where the opportunities are. And we use that basically to build the community risk assessment foundation of the treatment priorities. There's approximately 20 factors involved in this COLRAP process. And looks at community values at risk. That's a total net value of the entire community. It also looks at wildfire behavior, the rate of spread, flame lengths, fire intensity scale, suppression difficulty. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but it tries to look in depth at what's happening and then trying to put that together in common sense. And we'll have some input to that tonight. This is the Marshall Fire, of course. We talked about fire intensity. I don't know how you ever predicted anything like this. It's a tragedy of the highest order, at the worst hour, and the most unexpected part of the year. Many of you were there and participated in that. The fire intensity scale is really specifically identifies the areas where significant fire hazards and associated dangerous fire behavior potential exists. Fire intensity scale calculates consistently how it allows for fire to escape, to run rampant. Fire intensity areas in eastern Colorado are equivalent to the high fire intensity areas in western Colorado.
One of the big factors that builds into this is the rate of spread. Again, looking at a number of the characteristics of fire, and you can see on this map, and I know it's kind of difficult to see that. Again, you can see that the western portion of the district is the grass, fleshy fields. We do some work with some folks that were impacted by the Cameron Peak fire. We pulled up the fire report, and there was a 3-day period in September, 72-hour period, there were 78,000 acres. We had a chance to testify with the legislature and shared with them what that means. It's 1,000 acres an hour. And we said, ooh, that's big. And I said, when you drill down a little bit further, it takes you down to the burning Bronco Stadium about every 5.5 to 6 seconds. It's the rate of spread. And that was a wind-driven event, and everybody said, well, that's an unusual factor. We had troublesome, we had Buffalo Creek, and the Marshall Complex. The wind is not an uncommon thing. I just moved down here off of the Orange. We'll get to 78 mile-an-hour winds like that. So this rate of spread is a big factor. You can see what that growth and development was. It was linked to the Woolly. It's right on that border against that interface is such a critical part of this whole planning process.
Drinking water.
Anyway,
It's yours. I can do it. Okay. Yeah. Of course, what this shows is that drinking water, that's your water sustenance for life here. And the biggest risks are in the western part of the protection district. You can see here on this chart. Quality and quantity of public service drinking water is highly important. Index, as we look at this index, we can see the mountains, the runoff, where the water comes from. But there's another important thing here, the water, that's Denver water. Inside this district is the Denver water that comes out of the Grove State. And so when you start looking at this as a potential area of importance, values at risk for water, the greatest and the highest values for water in our district. This is the elements of an adaptive, fire adaptive community. I think we all can know, we all know that you gotta have a way in and a way out. And this model here is creating the image of a fire damaged community. And you gotta restore and maintain the resilient landscapes inside of it. Those are the trees you don't want to destroy your community. You want to provide for effective and efficient fire suppression and fire response. And you want to make the fire response to the department safer and more. The district, the fire district, you want to make it a safer and more resilient community. And this is a model that tries to illustrate that.
Three or four of the key themes that form the framework for CWPP really becomes the issue of fuel management. How do you manage those wildland fuels to reduce the risk? The other one is public safety. And we worked with the community Black Forest. It was post-fire. We talked about the issue of evacuation. That is so true with real right here in Arvada. In this district, when you look at campus, you look at Arvada, the challenge of getting people out here. I drive down Indiana in the morning, and there's no disaster. It's a disaster on the road. So evacuation is a big, big issue. We take that up. So the whole idea of public safety, and then Bjorn mentioned the idea of restoration and recovery and resilience in creating those kinds of landscapes that are going to be resilient in creating resilient communities. Well, one of the things that we've learned over from we have for the year is that fire is going to be here. We're always going to have fire. We just need to be able to create through public awareness. How do we live in an environment that's at some point in time is going to have a fire? And Jim Hubbard, when he was the state forester back 27 years ago, I had a chance to testify with Jim in front of the legislature, just actually approached the Buffalo Green. And the conversation we had with the legislature was the idea of when it's going to happen, not if it's going to happen. And we believe that's still true. You don't want to be thinking those negative things, but that's the reality of living in a fire system. So we want to be able, through this plan, put together a framework that can say, yeah, we can live in a safe community. We know the fire is going to be part of this.
Excuse me, sir.
This becomes an important framework.
Hey, loud. Can you put the mic closer to
Oh,
you?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks. This becomes the framework you'll see as we journey through this process, putting this plan together.
Yeah, I just want to reflect on many times, last night, we worked with the United States Forest Service in the Rocky Mountain region with the fires. And the first week we came down this single road with the horses, the furniture, and families. What led up the road was trying to get the fire suppression initial attack crews access, and we know this as well. The Lake Ranch issue and the situation that you have here is critical, and somehow we need to figure out at least how we can deal with that. The next thing is we're going to break out in 6:30. We're going to break out into 4 groups.
And this is a task where Greg pulls the ideas from all of you in terms of issues, concerns, even what you see as opportunities. And what we'd like to do is, we got 3 or 4 rules that we break out and self-select, just one of us like training on here, another kitchen, another upstairs.
Right. So I think the next step is the work step session. You want to be careful working off. I'd like to have each group identify a facilitator, have a recorder, and then capture as much of the information as you can on the flip charts. That's really important. What we're trying to do is look at the issues, the concerns, and what kind of opportunities are there, or other things that we need to consider in the plan. in your small groups, I think you want to look at those things. And we have a sheet here that gives that kind of a framework for that. And then come back here and we'll report out, take a look at our collective summaries.
We got 3 spots.
Okay?
So, and I think with the amount of people here, I think that should be okay.
Before you go, are there any questions? Yes, sir.
What's your relationship to the city relative to recommendations that come into the plan to affect policy changes that result in allocation of resources? So are we just planning to have a plan, or can you affect a change for something as simple as mowing the right-of-ways, which on your fuel map there, you've already identified as a problem, and I'm driving around this city and I see that grass is high, thinking if that happens, that doesn't get cut. There's been a major change. That used to get cut in previous years by now, at least once, and it's not. So anyway, probably should have said that in the group, but I just didn't.
Bring that to the group. That's a good comment.
It's a great question, because again, one of the things that, I think our desire for the outcome of this plan is that it truly is something that's operational, and it can become a factor for building those budgets for communities. We just finished the Community Wildfire Protection Plan for Douglas County, and there's elements that we recommend in terms of building zoning codes that can really make a difference. So we see this as truly an operational piece. And as you watch changes in the budgeting process and affecting priorities and changes, this becomes a great tool that you can anchor back to the city council and say, hey, this is really important. So we need to be realigning this resources. It's a great question.
Okay, Steve.
All right, so I'm not very good with math. 42. All right, so I'm thinking, just for ease of things, what if we do, let's see, 3 rows. Let's do these first 2 rows. Why don't you stay in here? And then I'm not going to include the Arvada Fire staff in this. The next 2 rows are going to go, there's a little classroom right over here down and to the left. One of these gentlemen will show you. And then the rest of the group, let's go up into, there's an upstairs classroom through this door to the right. That's your question.
Communication, making sure that we get the cell phone communication. We talked about the cell tower, possibly some kind of siren on the towers, either by the pool, on the towers across from the train tracks, maybe out of the park. We talked about the high-tech part of it. We also talked about the low-tech part of it, something that doesn't fail. We went over the evacuation routes, obviously talking about more roads, something to do with the parkway, the planned parkway, which is a north-south route, in addition to 82nd Avenue. This is one that I brought up. I have cattails behind my house that are dead. So it's a fuel source. Behind most of our houses, we can do some cleanup, which the responsibility can be put on us to go back and clean that up if possible. As a side, the Excel responsibility for the power lines. I didn't know that they went 100 yards under those power lines, but that they also, when they're mowing that, they're basically mulching up. So my concern that it was just creating fire or fuel, it was kind of answered because it mulches it up and therefore it reduces that as an issue. We talked about trailer storage across the train tracks, and Tracy brought up that it's road grade material underneath it, so not a fuel source. They are packed in them, but they're also manned. So, there's going to be some kind of response to it with people there getting it early. Another gentleman brought up GIS mapping, something that if that was communicated to everybody, you could drill down and find exactly where you live in relation to the coverage area. And there's another part to the storage for the RVs is that some of it's in unincorporated judgment. So it's not really Arvada Fire. So they kind of have to handle that on their own. Did I miss anything, Tracy? No, I think we got it. All right.
Thank you.
Well, give him a hand. Come on.
One of them, Chris? Yeah. I guess I should go down there.
All right, so for our group, one of the first things we just did, we went through and talked about all the concerns there and broke them down as far as the rating, what people thought was the highest level of concern. And vegetation management was really kind of the top concern there. That was a statement that encompassed several things. So one of these we're talking about as far as vegetation management would be the types of vegetation people are planting around the house, the types of vegetation that are out there in the native areas around them. Maybe identifying what might be more fire-resistant species versus what exists and how it responds to fire, as well as water consumption of those different species as well. There's also the perspective of mitigating the vegetation and reducing the fire risk that it represents in key areas next to houses and things of that nature, as well as obviously it represents the ignition source of first fuel ignited. As far as being along railroad tracks, being along roadways. So that was all encompassing in what drove the #1 position for vegetation management being on there. The second thing we identified is educational issues. Is really just getting out there and reaching out to the community, making sure they understand the threat and the CWPP and what's in it when it comes out, why those things are in the CWPP, so that people can understand why they need to take those lessons and apply them to their homes and talk to the neighbors about and help spread that word and lead by example and get those things out there. Underneath that, a little bit, we also talking about HOAs and HOA participation. I know some people felt like their HOAs were not that engaged with addressing these issues. So they want to see more from the HOAs, either being educated by them or from us or from somebody that is getting out there and pushing that word forward on CWPP and on the threat of wildfire. And it's kind of tied in the last position there, where there's both an access and egress issue, which I think most people were when we start talking about that. If you've been out on 182nd Lake communities there and what that represents. And then fireworks was also another thing that came up that I hadn't heard much about. So apparently there's quite a bit of fireworks used out there. Significant fireworks used this last 4th of July. So that was the last positive concerns that we addressed.
Hey, Commander, can you bring up the discussion we had about the fireworks, about the extra officers for enforcement on the 4th and the 3rd that weekend?
Certainly. Our city council has given us a little bit more authority in addressing our challenge with regards to the fireworks issues, pardon me, managing another thing as well, so I'm sorry. And so we're going to be out a couple weeks early, trying to enforce and making sure that people are well aware of what those ordinances are. We'll be sending those out to next door, pardon me, and we'll have officers out and about addressing those in person. On the day of, I'll have some extra folks in the Light Rock area and the Candelas area addressing some of those fireworks, utilizing this new authority that we have, and hopefully addressing that. I'm hoping that the word travels really fast before any kind of challenges occur. And then I'm going to also, of course, fall on you guys to communicate that to your neighbors, chat with your partner at the mailbox and maybe just let them know, hey, it's something we got to be conscious of this week as well, or this year as well. So that's kind of the direction we're going, trying to mitigate some of those challenges with the fireworks. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Long overdue.
Do you have a question?
There's so many unincorporated little pockets around here. And they're not all, can you concentrate on that a little bit too?
Certainly. So we can't enforce the ordinance in those unincorporated areas. We do have IGAs that we can utilize, which means we can actually work on behalf of, and the scenario that you're talking about, on behalf of Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. They don't have the exact same ordinances, but they do have a fireworks ordinance. Pardon me. And they will also come out and assist. They're going to have some folks in that area as well. They're very concerned about this wildfire challenge that we're working through here right now as we stand. Yes, ma'am.
I guess the last one you go. My name is Chris Willie, also from Line Rock, sensing a theme. We're very engaged in Line Rock. We talked about very similar things to everybody else. We have a couple bullet points here. We'll go backwards from maybe the less, I'm not going to say less important, but maybe the lower ranked ones. We talked about mitigation. We talked about maybe creating more fire breaks. Really dealing with vegetation, especially right now since it's so wet. Everything is growing like crazy. So really trying to low down a lot of the vegetation to create the defensible space that's going to be needed. And then we talked about really the enforcement of that, how we could do that, because getting people engaged to do those things, and then what's the repercussion if they don't do them? Is there any way we can do that? Hold people speak to the fire department on. But the most important thing that we talked about, which I've heard from some of the other groups, is communication, community outreach, and education. That's the one that we spent the most time on, and just talking about things like people don't know what to do when there's an emergency. And again, we're all using the word when, not if, unfortunately. So we talked about maybe having block captains for an individual block within a neighborhood, so that when all the other people are running around like crazy, not knowing what to do, at least there's one person that knows what to do. We talked about utilizing social media, video, emails, things like that, to try to keep people engaged and really educate them. And then we had the idea of having a global campaign to try to keep the word out and be in people's faces, so that when things like what we're experiencing now, we don't have people engaged in wildfire because they look out and they see it looks like Ireland out there. So why would they be engaged in wildfire? We all know that when July and August come around, it's likely going to turn brown, and then we're going to have wind, and you know what's next. So that was basically the majority of what we talked about. I covered pretty much everything. I think so.
Everything that matters.
Everything that matters.
Gilbert, I want to thank you for your comments. And what we'll do is consolidate all the comments. If you listen closely, you can follow kind of the 3 or 4 themes that we talked about in the overview. And we'll try to bundle comments. And if you haven't signed up already, get your name and address on the sign-up sheet with an email address. We'll make sure that we'll get this back out to everyone so you can kind of see what's going on. One of the interesting comments that I shared with the group in here, Gary and I had a chance to put together a CWPP for Douglas County. And the survey that they did with population there, the folks responded, 64% had no idea what they would do in terms of evacuation if there was a fire. And so if you think about Douglas County, 64% of those folks don't know what they did. And this group was talking about, the awareness and preparedness, and it's too late to go back and figure out what you're going to take when the bell rings. And get people to understand you got to think about it before the fire starts. The other piece that we're around talking about, if you watch the news in the morning, let's say it's a red flag day. What's happened is that it's not any different than any other day. We need to get people to understand that it's a red flag day. There's some things you need to be thinking about. And we hope that as we put this plan together, that it really gives some real operational ideas that we can think make a difference. The other piece I just shared with you, no one closes off. But one of the things that we really value is your time. And we have come to realize how important people's time is. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate the fact that you gave up a couple of good hours tonight to come out and share your thoughts and ideas with us. This is exactly the concept that was the foundation of the CWPP, the 24 Restoration Act, was getting community engagement, had people talking about what are the issues and concerns and the opportunities, and then we can begin to develop some real recommendations that can make a difference. So thanks to all of you for coming out. If you haven't signed that, sign the sheet with your email address in there. It just asks you to do that before you leave, and we'll get something back to the
I started with a question, I'll end with a question. We've given you a lot of input about what we want. What do you as fire professionals need from the citizens? What kind of infrastructure improvements? Do you have like enough fire hydrants? Do we need to be worrying about what the infrastructure looks like? Do you need additional equipment? What do you need less of? Maybe, I don't know, but I'd like to, since we have some city council people here, at the risk of, you guys getting fired, tell us what you need so we can help.
That's
Well, that's a good question. I think there won't be a spot in the report for fire capability and capacity that the fire departments have. Give us a chance to look at it. And actually, it's very well done. I don't have the answer to your question, Chief. Let me.
So actually, we're blessed to have a very good fire district here. We're an ISO 1 rated fire district. We're also accredited fire district. One of less than 200 in the nation that's got that. We just purchased a Type 3 wildland fire engine, which is state of the art. I've been in this business for a long time, and that fire truck is obviously one of ours. We also have a couple Type 6 brush trucks. We have a good water system. We have a great trained fire department. With that being said, we're always looking for things like this. This plan here will push us into the future of how we can get further funding from grants that are available. This opens up a lot of doors. For this to be successful, we're depending on y'all. Y'all have to be part of this community wildland plan and work with us. We need your input. You show up at meetings like this and things like that. It's great having the city here, police department, city manager, people like that. So it's a community effort that everybody needs to come together to do. And this is the first step. And having these experts behind us to kind of herd us in the right direction is where we need to go. But you're very honored to have fire department. It's nice what you got. And I say that as a government outsider. I've only been here 30 years, and I come from another department. We're out for 30 years, and you really have a well-trained, well-equipped fire department.
So what we should be thanking is our city councilman for resourcing enough for you to have.
Well, we're not actually part of the city.
Oh,
We're a fire district. We're a one entity. Director Luckridge up there.
pardon my naivete.
Director Luckridge is one of our 5 directors. So they're the way you need to thank and continue to support. And like I said, we're always, we have a great CRR department that's part of this, our fire marshal office. Chris Warren, he just got hired the last 18 months, year. He's a great SME. So when Chief Hyde up there, he's a wildland guy that goes all over the nation. There's 2 of the hives, there's good hives and bad hives. But they go all over the nation, and they're experts. They come back in, they bring this knowledge to us, And sometimes when we go out and deploy like they do, brings that knowledge back here to help better protect your community. Commander Kellogg, like he was talking about, him going out and working on 3rd and 4th of July with his people, the new district that the city put in, the new ordinances the city's put in, things like that is where we got to try to make the change. And just being perfectly honest, the big fire, the Marshall Fire, we just strike the grill while the grill's still hot. This is where we can get things done, this is where we can get things passed. The fire marshal, codes, things like that, push through. 5 years from now, people will forget about the Marshall Fire, about as I hate to say it. But right now, we need to do this kind of stuff. That's what we got to do here. This is the first CWPP that our department's ever done. Fairmount's done one in the past. I don't think the city's ever done one either. But we're great to have him as a partner and try to push this ball. Like Chris said, we're trying to push the ball up the hill. We're going to get the ball up the hill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We're really pleased and honored to be part of your team in serving this community and the fire department, showing various years. As I'm reminded over the many years that I've lived in Colorado, the last few we've had lots of fire. I mean, we've had smoke in the air all summer long. You almost have to ventilate your house with special filters and air conditioners. And it's all coming from somewhere, British Columbia and the West Coast. And that probably will continue. There's always false alarms. We get a lot of red flags, red flag winds. We get winds of 60, 80 miles an hour coming off the front range. But there is one thing you can do, and this is the ready, go, set bag, the go bag. It really tells you to kind of think about what you want to take with you, the most vital items that you have in case you do have an evacuation. That doesn't mean that you got to take everything that you have in your possession. It's some key things, like your health insurance, your driver's license, your passport, and any other valuable things that may go if there isn't a quick evacuation. These bags are provided by Lillian, thank you, and the fire department. And they're absolutely empty, so they could use some stuff. Well, thank you very much for your attendance, thank you for your contributions, and we will work hard to put this and frame this together. Thank you very much. Lyle and I are very obligated and humbled and honored to be part of this effort. Thank you.